Spinach thylakoids are things that I think you're going to be hearing a lot of in the realm of weight loss and suppression of appetite. So I want to give you a video to help you understand them better when you start hearing about them on the news, and I think you might. So without further ado, what the heck are these things? So thylakoids. Thylakoids are derived from green vegetables. They're components of chloroplasts. Chloroplasts are involved in the production of oxygen from carbon dioxide. In other words, photosynthesis. So very, very important for you and me staying alive. And if I were to look at a thylakoid under a microscope, this is an animation I found, they remind me of stacks of quarters stacked on top of each other, coins stacked on top of each other. So very, very important for the production of oxygen, but is it possible they have some effect on us in other ways? It does appear so. So how do these things appear to help maybe us lose weight as well as suppress our appetite? Bottom line, it's complicated. Let me give you a quick summary of what's going on. So thylakoids appear to be natural fat blockers. They appear to block fat naturally. And I also have seen some evidence that they may affect our microbiome, and our microbiome live in synergy with us. They eat the foods we eat, and they give off compounds that we in turn use to stay healthy. So I think that's another way they probably work. But the ways that seem to be getting a lot of attention are the effect of thylakoids on hunger suppressing and stimulating hormones in our body. For instance, we've got leptin. Leptin is a hormone made in our fat cells, and it does appear that thylakoids increase leptin levels, which in turn would actually suppress our appetite. There is evidence that they decrease ghrelin levels as well. Ghrelin's a hormone made in our stomach, and if you've never heard of ghrelin before, think of it this way. If you haven't eaten for a long time and your stomach is growling, well, if you think of it's growling, that's when you're making your ghrelin. That's the easy way to remember it. And so by suppressing ghrelin levels, again, this should decrease appetite. There is some also evidence I'm going to show you about in a minute where they increase another hormone called cholecystokinin, CCK, as well as yet another hormone called glucagon-like peptide 1, GLP-1. Again, really, really complicated. Don't want to get into complexities of the science here. I'd rather just show you the research, help you draw your own conclusions. So foods got thylakoids. Again, really easy to remember. If it's green, it's got thylakoids. That's the easy way to remember. If it's green, it's going to have thylakoids. Remember, green foods, green plants, they take in the sunlight and they produce oxygen from our carbon dioxide. So we're looking at spinach, kale, arugula, again, broccoli, collard greens. The list goes on and on. If it's green, it's going to have thylakoids. That said, the majority of the research I'm about to show you right now involves spinach thylakoids. Spinach, okay? So in terms of appetite suppression, I think this is where we see most of the evidence for spinach-derived extracts called thylakoids. Here is one such investigation, pretty straightforward. Thylakoids promote the release of the satiety hormone CCK, cholecystokinin, while reducing insulin levels in healthy humans. That's one investigation here. It's a small study. We're looking at 11 people. They're given a high-fat meal with or without these thylakoids, and these researchers noticed that ghrelin levels go down. That's good. Leptin levels go up. That's good. CCK levels go up. Again, really good. It's all those come together to help suppress our appetite, and also it reduced insulin levels as well. We've got another investigation here. Supplementation of thylakoids to a high carbohydrate meal decreases feelings of hunger, elevates CCK levels, and prevents after eating hypoglycemia in overweight women. The previous study was in a high fat meal. This one involves a high carbohydrate meal. So we've got 20 overweight women. They're given these thylakoids in addition to a high carbohydrate meal. And as the title suggests, the thylakoids suppressed hunger and the desire to eat for up to 180 minutes after they consumed this meal with the thylakoids. And again, CCK levels were increased. Again, as CCK goes up, our hunger tends to go down. And then we've got this other investigation, consumption of thylakoids in spinach, they call it spinach extract, reduces hunger, increases satiety, and reduces cravings for good tasting foods, again, in overweight women. Bottom line in this study, again, when I read the bottom line, we're looking at about a 20% reduced hunger, about almost a 40% reduced cravings for sweets and snacking in between meals, about a 30% reduction in cravings for salty foods as well. That was actually unique. And approximately about a 14-15% improvement in satiety. Satiety is the fancy word for our feeling of fullness. If you feel full, you might be less likely to overeat. And then without going all the other studies on this hunger suppression effect, I'll just show you this review article, which looked at 8 previous studies of thylakoids, and they all come to the same conclusion. All studies support this hypothesis, this idea that thylakoids reduce the feelings of hunger. And they're saying it is working by increasing postprandial cholecystokinin and leptin levels and decreasing ghrelin. I think it's more complicated than that because I do think the microbiome play a role in this. But they do point out something I wanted to bring your attention. The consequences of thylakoid intake on weight loss characteristics, they're calling it anthropomorphic characteristics, that's weight loss, is controversial. So let's switch gears and let me show you the research on thylakoids and weight loss. So we've got this investigation: body weight loss, reduced urge for good tasting food, and increased GLP-1 through daily supplementation with these green plant thylakoids. So 38 women are given 5 grams of these thylakoids a day or a placebo. They're giving it to them with breakfast, and they do this every single day for 3 months. It's a 3-month-long study, and that's actually really good. They find after these 3 months, the women taking the thylakoids, they lose 11 pounds, 8 pounds when the people when they took the placebo. So do the math, that's about a 3-pound difference. So it looks like if this study is to be believed, thylakoids are producing about a 1 extra pound of weight loss per month. Again, at least as far as this study was taken out, which is 3 months. Decreased urge for sweets and chocolate. They mentioned chocolate specifically in that study. GLP levels went up. Again, they felt more full. And as an added bonus, check this out, total cholesterol decreases and bad cholesterol levels decrease as well. Could that be due to the fact that they lost weight? That's a possibility. Could it be also due to maybe changes in their microbiome? That's a possibility as well. We've got this other investigation: the effects of spinach-derived thylakoid supplementation in combination with a low-calorie diet. And I like this study because they looked at a diet and thylakoids. So again, it's a 3-month-long study, 48 women, and they're given 5 grams of these thylakoids or a placebo along with a low-calorie diet. So stop you right there. What are they really doing? They're comparing diet plus spinach thylakoids to diet by itself. And they're doing that, taking the study out for 3 months. What happens? Well, people taking the thylakoids lose almost twice as much weight. In the thylakoid group over 3 months, they lost approximately 13 pounds, and it was roughly about 7 pounds in those who were dieting by itself. So in this study, it would look like over the course of 3 months, thylakoids might produce an extra, 5 pounds or so of weight loss compared to dieting by itself. Waist circumference drops, fat mass drops, and insulin levels drop as well. So you're wondering how much works? I kind of give you a little inkling to that I was looking at the studies, if you'd noticed what I was saying. Studies have used, well, again, if I look at just the food, about 2.5 ounces of boiled spinach a day. I want you to know you can get thylakoids from the food. And I was showing you the research on the supplements. They're using about 5 grams a day. I saw some studies using as much as 7.5 grams of thylakoids a day, but enough studies seem to be using 5 grams a day that make me think that if you were going to use a spinach thylakoid supplement, 5 grams may be the sweet spot. And I also want to point out that a lot of the research I just showed you was on a specific type of spinach thylakoid supplement made by a Swedish company. They actually support research on this. I will link to that supplement in the description so you could check that out. That is what most of this research is on, that particular dietary supplement. So pros and cons of spinach thylakoids, just give you a better idea if this is right for you. Yes, pros. Human clinical studies exist, no doubt about it. I just showed you a few of them here. There are several studies on the thylakoids reducing appetite and reducing cravings. I think that is the strongest amount of evidence right now for reducing cravings. The weight loss, maybe I'd like to see a little bit more. Again, this supplement I'm going to link to in the description. It is patented. It's patented by that Swedish company I mentioned a second ago. The stuff is not cheap, or is not inexpensive, I should say. It's pretty cheap. And again, just as spinach is pretty inexpensive. You don't need much. We're looking at like 5 grams, or if you're doing the food, maybe about, just a half a cup or something like that would probably get the job done. No studies have reported any serious side effects. That's a really good sign there as well. And then as for the cons, the studies are small, generally speaking. Again, I showed you one that had 11 people in it. The biggest I've seen so far has got roughly about 50 people, 48 to 50 people. I'd like to see a little bit more bigger studies, maybe 100 people to see what happens. Again, I did want to point out that most of the research does involve women. There have been some studies that involve men and women. I do think it would work the same in men as women, but I'd like to see 1 or 2 studies of just men to see if I am correct in that, but I think I am. The weight loss is modest, I think, for the most part. We're looking at, anywhere from 3 to, 6 or 7 pounds over the course of 3 months. That's not necessarily a con, because you don't want weight loss supplement that works really, really fast, because that could mess up your metabolism, and nobody wants that to happen, because in the long run, you'd end up having to diet even harder to lose weight. So I'm okay with the weight loss effects being modest. And another con in my book would be, I'd like to see some bigger studies, some longer studies, maybe a 6-month long study of 100 people to see if we can understand this better. So there you go. Have you tried spinach thylakoids? Have they helped you? Definitely leave a comment below. I'm curious to hear what you have to say. Until next time, gang, I'm Joe Cannon. Talk to you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.